Hi, I'm Dave Barnes.
And I'm John McLaughlin.
And welcome to Dadville.
Dadville is a podcast where we talk about life, love, and the pursuit of awesome dadding.
It's funny thoughts and deep talks.
So please, enjoy your time here in Dadville and enjoy this episode with
Kristian Stanfill. So I look Ben right in the eyes and I say, son, this is a lesson you have to learn.
Yeah.
The car is only as good as the gasoline that you put in it. And he looked at me and he was like, whoa. It was a moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, jeez, I love Rector. He is so cool.
I was surprised he didn't know that, but he was so surprised. Okay, so listen, before we turn this car around and head straight back to Dadville, okay, we have to tell you about Dr. Alison Cook and her podcast, The Best of You.
Oh my gosh, I love that song.
No, it's the podcast, The Best of You.
Oh, well, you know that song though? Like, is someone getting the best of you? It's a Foo Fighters song.
Oh, no, I do. But
Yeah.
That's not this.
Okay.
And I tell you what, I would love to rehearse that in the future because I'd stick those harms. I mean,
Yeah, well, I got it right here. I'm ready to go.
Okay.
We can rehearse right now.
Okay, no. Let's keep talking about the podcast.
Okay.
You'll love this podcast. It's a real pickup that combines wisdom, humor, and a faith-based perspective. Look no further, John.
Yeah. Join the dynamic Dr. Alison Cook as she guides you through the ups and the downs of life with grace and humor.
With the help of friends and experts, she'll delve into the depths of psychology and reveal how you can break free from those pesky patterns, heal your past, and find what brings out the best in you.
That's right. So grab your popcorn, put your feet up, and get ready to laugh, also learn, also live your best life every Thursday.
And if you want to get to know Dr. Cook even better, head over to Instagram at Dr. Alison Cook and follow along. Trust us, you won't regret it.
Is someone getting the best? Can I just say, and I'm going to be vulnerable from the top here.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Dave and I, before you got on, we were talking about, how like the tan has gone away. And sometimes when you look in the mirror, it's like, it's looking a little rough. And then, boom, like a prank from God, Kristian Stanfill just pops up. Just to twist the knife a little bit.
Not even. No way. I feel like the pale horse, the pale white rider right now.
Pale White Rider. Can we start a heavy metal band called the Pale White Rider?
Also, the room that you're in looks like a Instagram haven right now.
Well, that is my wife. My wife's creative contribution to the world and to our family is environments and spaces. So if it looks great, it's because she's amazing. Guys, I love both of you. I love this podcast. I am fans of both of your music. I'm
telling him to stop, guys.
Be happier to be with you guys today. I'm dead serious. I'm so excited.
Man, thank you.
Yeah, we are muy excedido, which is not sure.
Is that your prayer language?
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Yeah, we're thrilled to have you. So I need to intro you because people need to know who these dulcet tones are coming from, and a lot of you have spotted it. But yes, it is Kristian Stanfill. Y'all, you know his voice, and immediately you start closing your eyes and your hands go up, and you can't help it. And it's a Pavlovian response.
Worshiping the Lord.
And he's just, So here's a little bit of Kristian's brag sheet. Buckle up. Recorded first EP, Hello, in 2007. By the way, when did I meet you?
We met in 2011.
It was not real long after that. And I'm probably thinking of Attention, which you released in 2009, because I think you had something around that time.
We did a Brandon Heath tour together. I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah, I did like 3 shows. Yeah, I did. I mean, I was on there for like a sneeze. And then I was gone again. Brandon was like, "We'll this, and it will never happen again."
Yeah.
Okay, so then, like we said, first full length was Attention in 2009. 2011 album Mountains Move hit number 64 on the Billboard 200. Okay, somebody's flexing. Won 3 GMA Dev Awards. 2007 Special Event Album of the Year with Passion. 2009 Special Event Album of the Year with Passion. And guess what the 2011 was? Special Event Album of the Year Passion. That's why everybody's like, this voice is just making me so comfortable. Also nominated in 2011 for New Artist of the Year and Praise and Worship Album of the Year. Been an anchor worship leader for the Passion Movement since 2005. Is that true?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. That is a long time. So were you in there leading when Wirtz and I were doing the shows out in the lobbies for the Passion things?
We were. Yes, I was there. I was leading.
Right? You would have been in there.
At a community group. So I wasn't leading like in the big main sessions, but I was
Okay. Was because Tomlin was still there at the time? Is that right?
Tomlin, Knuckles, Redmond, all those guys were still there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then a couple more things. Wrote the RIAA Gold certified tune "One Thing Remains," amassed over 42 million streams. Get out of here, kids! Latest album, "Make It Out Alive," was just released. Just released November 11th. Like that thing is brand new.
New shoe smell.
And so there it is. This is your life. Is it who you
So how do you feel with the album coming out? I feel like anytime you put an album out, that's a charged couple weeks. How do you feel?
Yeah. Well, it's been
for both your credit card and your.
It's been 11 years since I released an artist project. So
right.
It feels like I'm doing it for the first time. I haven't felt these kind of things in a long time.
And 11 years ago, you're like, your last one, you were like saying phrases like, "What are the iTunes downloads looking like?" and things like that.
That's exactly right.
We don't say those things anymore.
Yeah. No, it's not a thing.
You're like, so we'll recoup this in the first couple months, right, guys? Like that would have been something.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that language is gone. It's gone the way of the dinosaurs.
They're all just write-offs now. That's all albums are, just tax write-offs.
So yeah, it all feels all kind of new. This project is, the Attention and Mountains Move are both worship albums. This is more of a singer-songwriter, storyteller kind of a record. It's very personal. It's really vulnerable, more conversational than sing-along. And so the tone of it is just completely different. So all the emotions and all the feelings around it are very different. I feel like, with Passion, everything is around the conference, which is so big and amazing, gathering thousands of college students from all over the place. This feels more like, let's sit down and have coffee and just talk about what's really going on in our lives. So it's a different thing.
As you say that, immediately that was kind of one of the questions that I wanted to ask you about this record, and because you have such an interesting career compared to really kind of anybody that lives in your space has a very different career than most of us do, because you do kind of have two, kind of like two entities. You're part of a huge worship movement and providing music that's praise and worship, but then you also, like this record, you have your own artistry, and is there whiplash there at all? I mean, is that tricky to sort of do, or is it nice because they're so different that you sort of you can put this one in that bucket and then this one in that bucket, and it's nice and clean?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both and. I love the church, and I love the singing church. I'm here because of the church. I mean, the reason I'm, probably alive talking to you guys is because of a youth pastor I had in high school who was like, I see leadership on your life and I want to help you out. You seem like, on the surface, you're just a knucklehead middle school kid, but I really believe there's more underneath the hood. So, I'm here because of the church, and I grew up leading worship. I love when the church sings to God. That's beautiful. But the church is made up of people, and people have stories. People have brokenness in their life. And this record is really just an effort to talk about that stuff and go, hey, sometimes the big gathering can feel untouchable, and you can lose the humanity of it. But this record is more of trying to touch on the human side of life. And, in the nitty gritty of what we're all walking through, there's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of pain. And sometimes we don't feel like we have permission to talk about that stuff. Right. And so this new record is really just trying to open the door, and in me being honest and vulnerable about the last couple years of our life, maybe helping other people, like give other people permission to do the same, because that's where the healing is.
Yeah. So earlier, I think it was this year, right? Earlier this year, my family and some other friends' families, we were in Atlanta for spring break.
Yeah.
And that's where we were hanging out. I met you at a friend's house, and you said, I think you just turned to me and you said like, "Hey, I really like your podcast. It changed my life." But
Yeah.
it was such a, it was.
I'm
you
sorry.
said it in such a throwaway
it's so heavy.
way.
Yeah. I just went there. Hey, nice to meet you. Your podcast changed my life.
So I immediately think.
Also, here's a tattoo of your face on my collar.
Well, I saw the tattoo, and so I knew to kind of be wary a little bit, but 'cause I was backing away as you said it. But no, it was one of those things where, like, when you said it, I'm like, oh, that was so casually said. I wasn't sure on what level of seriousness it was at. And then later on that afternoon, we kind of found some time to chat, and you told me, and so you told me kind of more specifics of it. And so to the extent to which you're comfortable talking about it, I would love for people to hear kind of the story, not specifically about Dadville and all that, but your experience.
I mean, but if the spirit leads, feel free.
Sure,
We have a lot of time.
Any of our
Goes there
sponsors.
naturally. Yeah, sure.
And we'll chop that into advertisements and use those profusely. But
I'm happy
without
to,
your
guys.
permission,
I
but-
love this podcast. Yeah, I guess, I mean, it was at the end of 2020, and 2020 and everything included in that year crashed into all of us in different ways. And for me, it exposed a lot of stuff personally, behaviors and ways of thinking, and just stuff from our past that I had not dealt with. It all kind of came to a head at the end of 2020. And I knew, my wife knew, my closest friends knew. Actually, one of those guys was the guy whose house we were at. Mm-hmm. Everybody in my world knew, like, hey man, things are not okay. You're not okay. And we love you too much to let you stay the same. So what are we going to do? That was kind of where I was at the end of 2020. There were a lot of different options floating around. I reached out to some pastors at my church, reached out to my good friends, and we were all kind of doing some reconnaissance on, like, what do you do? Where do you go? How do you get help? And I
so just real quick.
Yeah, sorry.
So do you mean like was it sort of like a gentle intervention sort of situation, or like people were just pulling you aside and saying, like,
no,
we call it a gentle
It was a gentle vention. That should be a thing if it's not.
Well, it's not gentle vision, which I do on that domain, but go ahead.
No, I mean, it was literally my wife called my two best friends, and they showed up at my house one night after my kids were asleep and sat down in my front yard, and they were like, hey, things are not okay. Can you at least admit that? I'm like, yeah, things are not good. And we had a pretty honest conversation about what was really going on in my life. And they said, we're not leaving here until we make a plan. We need to take some steps together.
How did you feel in that moment?
Ultimately, yes, I felt loved. I think I was at the point where it was time to stop playing the game. Like, the game was over. There was really no point in trying to, like, pretend anymore like everything was okay. It was like, hey, things are, like, beyond that point. And I was just kind of tired of fighting at that point. I was tired of all the pretending. And so I was at a point where I was like, hey, there's really just no point in trying to do this anymore. I'm just going to come clean. And so after that, we started doing some, digging on some places where, I could go and get some help. That's where the podcast enters. So around that time, you guys did an interview with Miles Adcox at Onsite, Onsite. And that was in the mix. That was in the conversation of, like, maybe we should go check out Onsite. And after that interview, I just knew. I was like, man, this guy, this place, I don't know what it is, but I just know this is where I need to be. Called Onsite that week, got, interviewed, whatever, did all the things, and ended up there at the beginning of 2021. And it literally changed my life. I mean, it was some of the hardest work I've ever done in my life. It was super painful. It was very raw emotionally, but it was what needed to be done. And I think, you asked how I felt in that moment when my friends came over. I think I had been, like, allergic to vulnerability for so many years. Just wow. at all costs, just avoid the real talk. Just kind of keep it up here on the surface. And And I came back from, yeah.
And why do you feel like that was the case?
It's a good question. I think it's a few different things. I think one, life starts to move really fast. Married, I have 4 kids now. There's the constant pressures of, providing for a family, work is moving fast. And then, you look around and everybody just seems to have it all together. The curated image of everyone's life is like, hey, everyone's good. Like, we're all good. Like, I think I'm the only one who's got this like brokenness in my life. I think I might be the only one. So I'm just going to keep it quiet. And, I think that's how I arrived. I think that's how I arrived at that place. And, but anyway, I came back from on-site just like, it completely changed my life.
Well, I was going to ask really quickly as you talk about on-site. I had a friend that we had like an hour conversation 2 days ago because he just got back, and I've had a lot of friends go and do on-site, and it seems like everybody's experience is obviously really different. Was yours one? Because like my buddy was saying, it was like I have people that come back and they're like, man, there were things I did not know that were exhumed, and it was like, holy cow, there's clarity. Like there they are, right? I have some that are like, I kind of knew some of it, and then it was like a medium, like my buddy said that. He's like, there was definitely stuff I didn't know, but it kind of just solidified what I suspected. And then some people who've had a lot of therapy go, and they're like, it was just a nice refresher and got me, what was that experience like for you?
Well, I went thinking we were just going to talk about like the topical, like, here's the reason I'm going. I just need some help with this.
Oh, you got.
I got God. I got
real good.
I got God. Yeah. After the first full day, I was like, oh shoot. Like I
made a terrible mistake.
For people listening who don't know what on-site is in general, it's like it's based around a lot of like group therapy. You come in and it's like first names. No one knows what you do, right? There is no occupation being given. No one knows where you're from or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's just first name, and pretty quick you start learning about people's lives. Yeah, apart from what they do, like where they come from, family life, childhood, trauma, addiction, all these. I mean, it just all starts coming out on the table.
And you were there for, was it a week?
Yeah, there for a week. Yeah.
Oh wow. So you were done and you were like, oh wow, did you feel like your experience was one where you were like, oh my God, look at all this stuff?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
So a lot of foreign things were like, or not foreign to you because obviously they're in you and in your life, but that you just didn't know were in there kind of thing?
Yeah, it was that. I think it was also some of it, you don't even realize how these moments in your life or experiences have really affected you as an adult. So these things that happen way back here, they connect to things that are happening right now, in the present. I think the most powerful thing for me at Onsite though was understanding that I was not alone. So this is what I was saying before. I think one of the reasons I was so scared of vulnerability and honesty for so long is because I thought I was the only one dealing with what I was dealing with. And I got to Onsite and I realized, man, not just here this week, but like in the world, there's this beautiful community of people who are committed to being healthy and whole and living in a real, honest, authentic way. And so coming home from there, just tried to set up that kind of community here and invite people in and stay connected to people here. And that was, nearly 2 years ago. And it's been the, most incredible 2 years of my life. Not perfect for sure. But man, just night and day different from, the end of 2020 to where we are here.
So when you say that you came home and you wanted to set up something like that in your life, I think a lot of people who see you at church would assume that would have been in place already. Like, were you surprised that not to say that the environment was toxic beforehand, but were you surprised? Like, were people really receptive of that kind of like community that you wanted to get going? Were they like, we should have had this whole time kind of thing?
Yeah, it was crazy, man. Like I came home from Onsite and first of all, what I learned to do coming home from Onsite is I learned to be oddly specific about things in my life. So instead of talking like in these big generalities, like, oh, I'm really struggling today, I really need some prayer, you know, and it's like, no, like I'm gonna go there with my guys and almost get oddly specific about like, here, I'm gonna just break down a few things in what's going on in my head and my heart that you guys need to be aware of. So that was a big shift. But as I started to like have lunch with guys and coffee with guys and start to tell them about the process I was in of getting healthy, and start to open up to some of the guys on our team, even friends back here in Atlanta, bro, it was crazy. Like almost 100% of the time coming back across the table was, bro, me too. I've just been, I didn't know that I could say that out loud, but I've needed to for so long. Yeah. And so it was almost like as soon as you like pricked that balloon, it just like popped and everyone was like, man, thank you. Can we please just talk about that? Like, this is crazy. Yeah. So it was almost like people were just almost waiting to have the conversation.
Well, I do think that it is crazy, and I mean crazy, how, that lie that you're talking about, that you're the only one, is like the strongest rubber band in our minds. And I think even 2 years out, like as you're talking, I want to say to you, like, dude, I could open my life up right now and you could look and it would make you feel better about your life. Like, and in 2 years you could forget all the truth, or just that one simple truth that like, oh, I'm not the only one that you discovered at Onsite. A week later that could be gone, and you could start retracting back to that. Like, I feel like I'm kind of the only one. I know some things were said last week, but that was last week. Now this week I feel like I'm starting to be the only one again.
Yeah. Well, one thing that we've tried to do, to combat what you're talking about, is like, I'm really bad at planning stuff. So like, I'm really good in the moment. I operate in life instinctively a lot, like just kind of like flowing. I don't put a ton of things on the calendar. I'm here talking to you guys, so that's a win.
Yeah. You killed it.
But we had help. But what I've learned to do is like put things on the calendar. So like every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m., I know I'm meeting with these guys. Every Wednesday at 1:30, I know I'm talking to this guy. Every Thursday morning at 10 a.m., I know I'm talking to this guy. And so as you have those connections throughout the week that you know are there, it helps you remember what you're saying, that I'm not alone. And you have, I had a conversation with a guy this morning. It was so good to talk to this guy and go, okay, all right, yes, all right, I'm not alone in this fight. We're in this thing together. I got your back. You got my back. We're on the same journey together. So I think it's putting those things in place in your life so you don't forget. It's important.
Yeah.
So there were, I was literally taking notes the entire time y'all were talking. So three thoughts that I had that I think are very powerful. I think one, to your immediate point about being alone. I think if there's probably 3 to 5 things in the last 4 to 5 years of my life in my 40s that I think God is just doubling down on. That He's like, I really want you to understand these things. And one of them is just this idea that He really has made us to be together. I mean, the church as a word is really tricky because I think people can hear it and go like, and there's scars there and those things. But the collective spiritual church, God's intent for people is to not be alone. It's to never be alone, right? And there's solitude, which is a very different thing than loneliness, And so I think I think the more we lean into understanding we are symbiotic by posture, like our posture in the world should be toward people always. I mean, that's really the goal of the church, of the global church, just to be together. Like, we're not supposed to be alone because, that is, it's the imagery Jesus used so much. He's pulling the lambs apart, and that's when the wolf gets them, right? Is when they're not with the flock. And that's why I love that imagery of a shepherd, is he is the good shepherd. He's keeping us together, right? And I think our society right now is so big on like, you do your thing, you got to know you. And yes, we need to know who we are. I mean, that's the help with Onsite, right? Is reminding us who we are in our stories so that we can be healed in them. But ultimately, it's not to stay out there. It's to come back. It's to be a part of a body. We are literally a body. We're the feet, we're the hands, we're all these things, right? So I think that's something that I think is so important for anybody listening, and even as we're talking, I need to hear this, is just that, the movement is always toward people. It's always toward people, always toward people, always toward people.
Amen. Yes.
The other thing I was thinking about that you said, and I say this a lot on this podcast, but it's so true. And this is not my quote, but and it's exactly what you're saying with onsite, is that anytime I heard this quote, and I actually don't know who said it, but I quote it all the time. Anytime we come together sharing our strengths, it breeds competition. Anytime we come together sharing our weaknesses, it breeds community. And so I think that the trick with the church is then we can't just be together, we have to be vulnerable. And that, you have to be careful with that. And I think obviously Brene Brown and a lot of people have great thoughts around this, but you can't just come in slinging your heart around, because I can get you in trouble too. But in the way that we can relate to each other, because, and I've talked about this before, but there was when I heard this quote 15 years ago and it changed my life, I started to do this experiment because I'd be in lunches with other guys and I just feel like this is not working. Like, you know what I mean? You'd sit with somebody and you're like, I really like this person like me, but, and I would go, okay, I'm just going to share something and see what happens. And it was like the conversation would take this amazing left turn where it was like, this is what's going on with me. And they'd be like, dude, that's what's going on with me. And I was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go.
That's it.
Here it is.
Well, and I do feel like those who are steeped in the church a little bit, there is, like Kristian, what you were saying earlier, that sort of like general vague, there is a language.
Yeah. Unspoken.
Yeah. Which,
Praise report.
Got a couple unspoken. I got an unspoken too. I'm going to piggyback on his unspoken.
I've been unspoken for 20 years.
I have a gray unspoken, a couple of really dark black unspokens that are real unspoken.
I have a couple of unspeakable unspoken. But, I always want to be careful when I'm being critical. And it's fine to be critical, but it's all about the heart behind it. But that language can get us all into trouble.
Yeah,
and you find
true.
yourself,
It's
Dave,
true,
like you're saying, you're at lunch and you're kind of speaking this language, and it's not doing anything for anybody.
Any good.
Until you just go for it and you start saying something real.
The thing, it's the other thing that I noticed with that, to your point, John, is like, it's really a sociological joke in a funny way, because like I see it happen, and once I heard that quote, it's like I entered the Matrix. I neoed, because I was like, I could see it happen. A guy would come in a room and he isn't meaning to do anything but just to make himself feel secure. So you just immediately start talking about good things. And then you watch the guy next to him and he's like, oh yeah, we just closed that deal on the big multi-billion-dollar thing. Oh, no way. Are you dealing with Jim? He does all my deals. And I have a lot of deals that are multi-billion-dollar. And you just see it. It's like dominoes.
Right.
Because, and I learned it's not anything we mean to do. It's just security. It's just, oh God, well then, it's the sprint has started, and we're all just like, you know, whereas if you see somebody come in and do the opposite happens. It's the opposite domino. It's like, man, I'm so, dude, God, can I tell you, man, my wife and I had a fight last night and I'm still kind of mad. And and then all of a sudden there's just connection, So I think, and then the other thing I was going to say, and just for those who are listening, I really want to double down on the on-site thing and more just there, because I think that, it's got less of a bad, rap these days for sure. But I think the thing that I was reminded of talking to my buddy about on-site was, and you just said it so well, Kristian, I think for anybody listening that's like, God, I just got this stuff I can't shake, and I think my promo for therapy, and I would say a lot more so for on-site, because, and Miles talks about this so succinctly and clearly in the couple times we've had him on, is they've done all these studies to show that, mobile therapy, like acted therapy, physical, like when you're walking around and doing things, which they do there, these stories, and they walk through all
like
these
role
exercises.
play
It's really
stuff.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Role play kind of, yeah, which is a fun thing to say out loud. But it really is so helpful. And Miles, and they can show you the data where your brain just processes it so much quicker and more significantly than just talk therapy, which is still amazing. But what I'm saying all this to say this, I think for those who are listening, the clarity, and you just said this, Kristian, that's so powerful about great therapy is there are all these things that happen to us that we forget about, but they iterate into these massive things later in life. And you're like, why is it every time somebody does this, I get really mad immediately? And that's a big response to something that really good therapy, and what on-site especially does, is they start tracing it back, and you realize, like my buddy had this thing happen, somebody said something to him and he was like 11 years old, 10 years old, and it has informed so much of his life since then. And that kind of therapy, somebody was able to go, that's the thing. And he was like, holy cow, that's the thing. And so I think, it's just having somebody that knows how to sort of spelunk, that can take that thing into your soul and kind of, because I think, especially in the church, you can find people who go, well, God can do that stuff, and he can, right? But he can also give people the gifts to do that.
That's exactly right.
And I think that's where it's so powerful to me, is when you really do get with people who are so gifted, schooled, experienced, and gifted, and they kind of put on their headlamps and they just sort of take your arm and they just walk backwards into your life. And you're going, yeah, this is all the stuff. And they're like, no, this isn't normal. And you're like, oh, it's not? And you're like, no. Because you're just used to the tapestry. You're used to,
yeah, right.
Like I laugh with a buddy of mine when he was getting married. He's like, so what is marriage life like with your family? Like, what is it like bringing a spouse in your family? I was like, this is what I think it's like. It's like every day you wake up and there's this tapestry that hangs on your wall. Right? And you're living by yourself and you're like, that's the Barnes family, right? And that's what it is. And of course I'm speaking in jest here because by the grace of God, I have great parents, but we all have faults, but then you bring a spouse in and you're like, that's the tapestry. And they're like, wow. And you're like, yeah. And they're like, okay, quick question. In the corner, there's a lot of blood and there's a dragon. And you're like, yeah, that's the dragon. That's the blood dragon. And they're like, well, no, that's really, you shouldn't have a blood dragon in your tapestry. You're like, oh, well, we do. And you're like, well, maybe let's circle that. And then and on the mountain, there's a huge demon that's shooting fire out of his mouth. You're like, yeah, it's a mountain fire demon. And you're like, well, that again is probably not something, but you're just so used to seeing it, right? You're just so used, this is my life. And I've just learned to acclimatize to it. And then you have these people that come in and go, no, we need to talk about those things. And all of a sudden you go, oh my gosh, as a 44-year-old man, I respond this way when triggered by this thing because something that happened to me when I was 9. And that's where the freedom comes, is that when somebody can sit and pulls that thing out and you both look at it and they kind of twist it around, you sit and you deal with it. And there's a million ways to do that you really do get free of these things. It's crazy. And that's why, and last point, and this will end my TED Talk / sermon. This is the thing that he and I were marveling at, is that when Jesus said he wants to free us, he really wants to free us. It's not I'm free and I'm liberated to be who I am. Sure, it's that, who God made you to be, but he wants to get you out of this bondage. Like, that's the goal. He knows how you're made. He knows these things. He knows that the body keeps a score. He knows the things that attach to our life, like lichen on a vessel, and he's going, hey, I want to get them off because you move the best in the water for these things. And you're like, well, it's not that bad. And he's like, no, trust me. If I can get you how I made you, it's
so true.
It's like, it's good.
That's so good.
And so I think that's, I just, to reiterate what Onsite can do. And again, I say this really just for people listening, like, I'm thinking about it. It's just crazy what that work does. Like, these things that you don't even know iterate. And you have the clarity to finally go like, oh, and to your point and my buddy's point when you got home, it's not like all of a sudden everything's fixed, but you at least go, okay, here's the work. This is the work. And I can do it.
You have a way forward, and you have new tools to work with, for sure. Yeah. And I love what you're saying there. When you talk about Jesus setting us free, I think it's good to make the point that all of this isn't just, vulnerability or therapy for vulnerability or therapy's sake. It's a process of growing and changing and getting better and getting more healthy. And so it is just a stop along the way. But man, I love what you're saying too about needing people, because I think my tendency, especially for a long time and even still, is to isolate and to be alone. But learning to invite people into all of life, I think you want to stay up on the mountaintop and celebrate with people. But I found there's almost the roots of relationship actually go deeper when you cry with people. Invite people into the sorrow of life and go, hey, this sucks and it hurts and it's messy and we don't have an answer for it. I just need you to cry with me for a little bit and go, I'm here for you, man. And so it's, it's the mountain and it's the valley, it's the shadow and the sun. That's life. I mean, in the church, outside of church, man, that's just life. Life is hard. This is a broken planet we're living on, and we need people. I actually, while you were talking, I thought about this quote. Do you remember this book? I'm not gonna remember the name of this book, but it's like the boy, the horse, the mole, and the fox, or whatever. It's the illustrated book. You guys read this book?
Yeah. I do know what you're talking about.
It's amazing. I wish I can't think of the title right now, but I read this quote in there the other day. It says, "It's go with me here. It's the horse talking to the boy, and he says, when have you been at your weak?" Or it's the boy talking to the horse. Sorry. "When have you been at your strongest?" asked the boy, and then the horse says, "When I dared to show my weakness." And it's such an upside down way of thinking about it, but when you open up and you bare your soul and you show your weakness, that's actually when we start to become our healthiest self. That's when that is when we get stronger, you know.
And I can't tell you how many times I'm like, if you're going to get on the roof, you have to have a ladder. And he's like, a ladder, more like ladder cry, which I guess was a Hootie and the Blowfish joke, but I totally missed it. I was so confused. We just stood there staring at each other.
Yeah, and that's your first sermon you've ever preached.
That's exactly how it ended.
Insane. You're good.
Listen,
You're good.
Can I tell you something?
Please.
It's an exciting day, John.
Oh, yeah, it is.
The day is finally here.
Yeah. All right, let me guess.
Okay.
It's not your birthday.
Nope.
That's too early.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the anniversary of you discovering my first album,
late
is it?
That one. No. Today is the day
Okay.
that I kick off my new soap lifestyle brand, Dad and Suds.
Dad and Suds.
Yes.
Sounds like you have quite the clean slate to start from, Dave. But wait.
Okay.
You hear that?
That sounds like the platform that's changing the game for millions of businesses around the world, and that's Shopify. John.
Shopify. That's right. Whether you're selling handmade soap, it is handmade, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Or custom T-shirts about soap.
Yep.
Right? Either one, Shopify makes it easy for you to sell both online and in person.
Well, you can wash away your worries with Shopify, John. And the best part is that Shopify covers all of your sales channels.
Yeah, they do.
You can use their in-person POS system or their all-in-one e-commerce platform to sell your products.
Yeah, and they've made it possible for you to sell across social media platforms like TikTok, where all the kids are, Facebook, where your parents are, and Instagram, where we are. Just knowing that helps me with my new song, The Scrub-a-Dub Blues.
Call me interested.
It's part of a concept album called Clean as a Whistle.
Oh, I love that. Without a doubt, that album will be the dark side of the moon of its time. I'm telling you, for those of us on Instagram, we're going to love that. Plus, with Shopify's industry-leading tools, you have complete control over your business and your brand, and you don't have to be an expert in design or code to make it happen. I can see it now, a live album called Sud Symphony or Lather and Live. I'm workshopping it. Don't judge those.
All right. Well, if you ever need help, Dave, Shopify is there for you 24/7. You thought I was going to say 24/6.
Nope.
But no, 24/7 with their support team and an extensive business course library. They're committed to your success every step of the way. However, they can't help you name any soap-related business entities. There's some legal red tape there.
Now it's your turn to get serious about selling and try Shopify today. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Dadville, all lowercase.
Go to shopify.com/Dadville to take your business to the next level today.
That's shopify.com/Dadville. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. So I jump down from the monkey bars. I look at him right in the face and I go, more like My Little Pony. I'm not lying.
I mean, if there's a reason to get kicked out of church, that would be it.
I haven't been back since.
Yeah, totally worth it.
The posters are up and everything. So, John,
yeah,
you're ready to go on tour. And I just want to say it again. You're getting ready to go on tour.
Yes, I am.
What's your daily routine on the road?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a big question.
Yeah.
All right. So I start every day, practicing my latte art, obviously.
Yep.
Then I throw on some mismatched socks, and then I load up on liquid IV, Dave. Why?
Yeah.
Because it keeps me hydrated all day long. You know how sound check can get really dry.
So dry, especially in Colorado.
Yeah.
John, liquid IV, and it looks like liquid 4, but it's not.
It's not.
But we know what the liquid's for. Liquid IV is a hydration supplement you can add to water. One stick, just one package, and 16 ounces of water hydrates you 2 times faster and more efficiently than water alone.
That's right. With 2 times the hydration factor, how much time do you think you could save?
Listen, I wasn't good at geometry in high school. However, Liquid IV contains 5 essential vitamins, B3, B5, B6, B12, and vitamin C, and has 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks. Plus, it's made with premium ingredients, non-GMO, and free from gluten, dairy, and soy.
That's right. Get all those out of there. I don't want them. You don't want them.
No.
And when I take my morning batch of Liquid IV, I feel so refreshed.
Yeah, you do.
I do it every single day. Plus, Liquid IV is out to change the world, Dave. Let me tell you.
Tell 'em.
They have donated over 36 million servings in 50 plus countries around the world. It's not just about hydration, it's about making a difference.
That is amazing. Grab your Liquid IV in bulk nationwide at Costco, or you can get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use code DADVILLE at checkout.
That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using the promo code DADVILLE at liquidiv.com.
Which again, it's in our weakest, he's the strongest. And
right.
it's like you suddenly have these moments in your life, like, oh, I think I know what he's talking about now.
Right.
Because at first you're like, okay, don't score the last goal, let your friend score it. I've been weak and now God is strong in me. But instead you realize like, oh, these things that I'm peeling off of myself that feel so vulnerable and terrifying, and I'm just sucking my thumb on the floor. And God's like, here we go.
Right. Exactly.
Now we can
I can work with this.
Yeah.
So at some point, like music started to, some of this experience started to translate into music.
Yeah.
Which I have several questions about it. I mean, first and foremost, just my head, because I am a songwriter myself and I have this long-standing relationship with music.
Yeah.
I'm curious, did you feel pressure to write about it? Because I think sometimes when things happen to me, like when we had kids, I'm like, I have to write songs for my girls. There's a pressure there. You know what I mean? I don't know. Did you feel that at any level?
I think for me, it was more about survival and just processing out loud what was happening.
Yeah.
I started writing songs that actually are part of this project pretty early on in the process, because I just needed to write this stuff out. It was almost like purging it out.
Like journaling, yeah.
Almost like journaling. And this is the honest truth, I didn't think when I started writing the songs that I was writing for, I was going to make a record, or that it would be like a part of a project. It was really just therapeutic. It was writing to heal. And but then as I started going through the process, I realized what we're talking about. That, man, everybody's hurting and everyone's struggling. Maybe these songs could actually help somebody else, or give somebody else words to use for their own story. And it was a lot of fun too, because I spend a lot of time as a songwriter writing songs for the church and writing songs for people to sing in a church setting. And these songs were not that. I grew up listening to Billy Joel and James Taylor and Stephen Curtis Chapman and all these amazing
I don't know who they are,
songwriters. That's the kind of music that I grew up on. It's the kind of music that I love. And so telling a story, it was really just fun. Like creatively, it was so fun to just go down this different path and open doors that weren't, usually open as a songwriter or as a creative person. So yeah.
So one of the things that I think is interesting about that is that there is such a difference in writing those kind of songs.
Yeah.
I mean, people, I think if they aren't music people or they don't write songs, it's easy to think like, oh, like praise and worship is just different words and you sing it. But you said it so. I actually wrote this down because I thought it was so well said. It is kind of the difference between a sing along song and something that is just not that. You know what I mean? Like you want to get people. I mean, that's I think good praise and worship has a collective feel. There's something about it that invites you to sing along, and that's a very different thing than really kind of a lot of music, even pop music. I mean, some of it is meant to be, but a lot's just meant to be listened to and enjoyed, and so that would be a really different way to write. I mean, it would feel like putting a different hat on in some ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like you said, it's freeing in some ways, like you said, because you're like, oh man, I can actually make this a little more nuanced or use words that are not the words I would use, to invite people into as much as to listen and observe and take it in a different way.
Yes, it is. It's definitely more a storyteller approach. And I think sometimes, with songs like this, I felt okay about writing very personal, very specific lyrics in these songs and not having to explain them, and just put them in a song and say, if you really want to know what it's about, you can just listen to the song or listen to the project. You'll figure it out. Or what does it mean to you?
Yeah.
But in a worship song, it's I want to give context for the truth that we're singing and help people understand. Trying to, as a worship songwriter, you're trying to remove all the roadblocks, so that people can just get in the current and just sing.
Get in there.
And that's always been my goal, at least as a worship songwriter. But with this, man, it was very autobiographical, and I wasn't really thinking about anybody else. And that sounds kind of self-indulgent to say it that way, but I wasn't thinking like, who's going to ingest this or absorb this. It was more like, I need.
But you know what's interesting? That as you say that really is probably the best qualifier I can think of, the difference of those two things, and not in a selfish way. To your point, being an artist that's a singer-songwriter that's not doing praise worship, the best you can do is to get lost in who you are and not think about anything else.
Yeah.
The most detriment that comes is worrying about what everybody's going to think about it. Or is this something everybody's going to sing?
Dave and I talk about this all the time, how there's like this sort of weird dance it's like an unspoken dance where like your fans, if they loved that last record, they kind of want a different, or they kind of want the same record, but they want a different record. And as soon as they feel that you're trying to sort of like edit to them, then like the magic is lost a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah, it's gone.
But
then with not that is the diametrically opposed opposite of worship music. You just said it so well. Like you're trying to get everything out of the way.
It's got to be singable.
Is this approachable?
It's got to be a song that there's a simplicity to it that is really difficult to write.
That's right.
I would imagine. I mean, you got to be able to, like the band at your church, if they can play it, great. Well, they're great musicians, but like the band at the church down the street, they got to be able to play it.
That's right.
There's got to be. It's a very narrow lane.
Yes, it is. I mean, I think there is a cool blend that you can find, especially right now, in worship music. Immediately I thought about Gratitude by Brandon Lake, one of my favorite songs out right now. That song, you listen to the verses, it's very, very personal, but people are connecting to this lyric in a very real way and then responding in worship. So there is a way to do both, which is cool to see when that happens. But you two, I mean, both of you guys are two of the best at what we're talking about. Telling stories, writing songs, even musically. And I love hearing what you guys are saying about writing these kinds of songs.
If you had to rank us though.
And with everybody, and I literally mean everybody that's ever made music. Let's just take our time. And,
let's make a list.
Yeah.
I'm so fascinated with any other songwriter, especially when it's someone who has got, like the three of us who have done it for a long time. Because you've got that beginning part that Dave and I talk about, that beginning where you're just, everything you play, it's maybe the first time you've played that chord and you're like, it's everything is a discovery, you know what I mean? And you're not tired of your own voice yet, and everything just feels like kinetic, and it's just coming out.
It is.
And then 17 years later, it's like I can't find a key on this piano that I haven't played a million times.
That's right.
And yet there is something about some new idea that is just like magic, and you're like, I don't know why I've played this a million times, but it feels different now. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And part of the magic of the last couple of years for me was disconnecting from the expectation and just creating, not thinking about the consumer or who it's for or the function of it, but just creating and falling in love with being a creator again.
And you know, that I feel like
dreaming.
You know, people might be listening to this who are not musicians or maybe not quote unquote creatives, but as you're talking about, you're specifically talking about music and your last couple years, your relationship with music has been, like you're saying, just forget about everything else and just create. Forget about expectations. And it really is just exactly what you were talking about in the beginning with your actual life. I mean, we all are creative. We all are like living our lives.
Yeah, that's right.
And you needed to forget about these faux expectations on both sides. Faux expectations that you have for other people and just live your life. So for those who are listening who are not quote unquote like creatives or writing a song or whatever, it's the same rule of thumb for our life. You know,
that's right. That's right. Beautiful, man. Wow.
Thanks. So I want to digress just for a second because we want to talk about the fact you have 4 children, which is amazing and is
well, you know, everybody
more than you and you.
Anyone who has one more kid than you have is crazy. And so I was thinking before this interview, I'm thinking, well, I think Dave's crazy because he has 3 kids, and then Dave, by definition, thinks you're crazy because you've got 4 kids. Yeah, it's just how the rule works.
But you think, but if you're staying with the math, you think he's twice as crazy as me.
I might be.
So okay, I want to digress on 2 points quickly before we get to the kids. Do you have any good worship fail stories? Because I feel like you might have one.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I do.
Because I feel like failing for me and John is kind of like cheating. Yeah, it's like nobody's singing with us. Right. You know what I mean? The expectation is very different because like we can go out and fail and it's funny and you forget a lyric or, oh, I've started too fast or whatever.
With you though,
you know,
somebody might have just
like,
been about to accept Christ.
That's right.
The next
people's eternal destinies hang in the balance.
Is right. Right. Yes. Yeah. It's just a lot more stakes. I'm curious if you've had something.
I mean, there's a couple. I've told this story before, but so our song "Glorious Day" is, you know, this big celebration, like just, you know, big moment. So there's this moment right before the bridge happens where I would always try to like talk to the crowd and get people fired up about what we were singing and kind of like infuse some like leadership there. And I would always lose the one, like always. I would count us back in at the most wild moment in the bar, and our MD would get so.
I love this.
He would laugh, but he also started to get kind of frustrated. He's like, "Man, Stanfill, you just got to count to 4, bro. Like this is not hard." And so after it happened a handful of times, he said, "Listen, if this happens again, the song is in D." He said, "We're going to change the key up to E for the bridge." So I was like, bro, that's hilarious. And I'd forgotten about it. Well, we were at this big conference in Texas. It was the very end of this big conference. There's all these, you know, students there, and we're doing Glorious Day. And I start talking before the bridge. I lose the one. I count us back into this weird, and all I hear in my ears is the MD. His name is Jeff. He goes, "Oh, you've been a bad boy."
No.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
So we come back in on the bridge and they have jumped the key from D to E. Not only is that insanely high for my voice, every staff member of this church has come out on stage. There are beach balls everywhere. I'm getting hit in the head with beach balls. The key is different. I can't sing it. The band is losing their minds. They're laughing so hard. And it was a complete cluster.
That is wonderful.
So great.
Real.
Oh, you've been a bad boy.
Oh, you've been a bad boy.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
We're having
That's right.
Beach balls. Beach balls.
That's right.
Beach balls.
Beach ball. And people are taking selfies on stage, and I am just, I don't even know where I am anymore. Anyway,
That's a
Oh
whole
my
other
gosh.
skill though, to be playing, you're in the song, and then you're going to talk.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
listen.
It's a different part of your brain.
And the
I'm just
band would
trying
try
to
to tell
defend
me,
you.
they're like, hey man, this isn't that hard. Like, and you know, they're doing all this complicated musical stuff over this musical interlude thing. I'm like, man, I am such a basic musician. I cannot follow.
So you would just lose where they were, and then because I'm sure it's kind of like
It's washy and it's like,
vibey, right?
digga, bow,
Yeah, so it's not like
bow,
yeah.
bow, bow. You know, it's like all these like hits and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm just
Yeah.
losing the one.
And so you would just go, here we go, 1, 2. You just
And
pick
they
up
would
wherever you
have to
wanted
go with me. You know, because here we go,
Right.
1, 2, 3. And they're like, where are you? Like, what planet are you on, man? Like, it was,
I love that so
that's where it all
much.
came to a head.
Okay,
But-
can I ask
Oh my
one
gosh.
more aside now that we've done the
Yeah.
worship?
Yeah.
Digression
Yeah,
too.
Yeah.
I have really wanted to ask you about this because you are in the worship space, and you are a cool looking guy. You got everything's put together. You got cool clothes on, everything. Maybe your wife picks out your outfits as well, but no judgment there.
Yeah, no judgment.
okay. Preachers and sneakers. What are your? I'm sure this is probably a longer conversation, but
Oh my
what
gosh.
are your thoughts on preachers and sneakers? Because when that came out in 2019, maybe early 2019 is when it when I was aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in that world, you know, but I was just like, I hear both sides, people who are sort of for it or against it, to oversimplify it, but I was just like, I think this is good. This is a good conversation that we're having. This leads
Yeah.
to good conversations. But you're a little more in the crosshairs.
Man, I don't feel like I know enough about it to like weigh in, and I don't feel like I'm trying to dodge your question. I haven't followed the account super closely. I haven't read the book. I don't know any of like why all that's out there. I think I will say like, I think it's good to not take ourselves so seriously, and I think
Yeah.
I think some of that stuff is just funny, and I think that's okay. I think it is touching it like on a deeper level. That, and it depends on who you ask, and you know, people have different stances on all that stuff. But I don't know, man.
I mean, do you have a take? I guess the thing I'm curious about too is just like, which you may have answered with just not taking it quite as seriously, but I think the thing that for me it triggers is this feeling of like hypocrisy, I guess, just kind of like, you know, it's, I mean, that's what the whole paradigm is like, oh, you're up there talking about these things, but you're wearing $1,200
Sure.
shoes. And the thing that's tricky is like, you know, is that inherently, no, there's nothing in the Bible that says you can't have expensive
Sure.
things. But I think culturally, you know, it's tricky, you know, and I am curious, like, how do you, I mean, it's not like you're wearing, maybe you are, but I mean, how do you balance that being someone who's being viewed that way and you're on stage? I mean, that's just tricky, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I can just talk about for me, like the way that I approach it. I'm just not trying to do anything that's distracting people. I think that's how I go about it. So I think, you know, if I'm going to wear something that, and the story becomes about the shoes that I'm wearing or the jacket that I'm wearing or the watch that I'm wearing, then, you know, I've done the moment a disservice. That's how I think about it.
Wow. Look at you.
You know, when it comes to being a worship leader, you know, my goal is to disappear. My goal is just to, you know, facilitate worship and lead worship. And as a worship leader, I might be leading the time, but I'm not the only worshiper in the room. So my goal is not to go like, hey, look at me. My goal is to facilitate worship, let people connect with God. And if something that I'm wearing is distracting people from doing that, then, you know, I just, that's how I think about it. That's not an indictment on anybody else. That's just how I think about it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Kidland, you have these 4 kids.
What are the ages of your kids right now?
so 16, 13, 10 and 8.
Whoa. You have a 16-year-old?
16. He turned 16 yesterday.
You look like you're 28.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have a 16-year-old.
Like, is he getting his
man.
driver's license?
He'll get it in April. He wasn't really in a hurry to get it, which is I figured that's true about this generation.
I've had a few friends tell me the
I
same
feel like
thing with
it's
their
not
kids.
as much of a thing as it
I was
when we were
pounding
kids.
the door down, like give
100%.
me.
I got it. We
freedom.
got it when we were 15 in Mississippi. I
That's
mean, it was
crazy.
like, yeah, come on.
So yeah,
That's
16,
okay.
13, and then 10, and then my youngest will be 8 on Christmas Day, actually. So that's
Oh,
where we're
wow.
at. Mhm.
How do you feel? Have
That's
you
a
been driving with your 16-year-old?
A little bit,
Doing that whole
a little
thing?
little bit. Yeah, it's cool because I think he understands the responsibility. Firstborn. I think he's got this, like, he understands that not only is his life in his hands, but the people who he's driving around, so he takes it very seriously, which is good. He's got a long way to go before he gets his license in April. So
Yeah.
we're
I would
gonna
think
do more driving.
Jeez.
I mean, my oldest is about to turn 10, so I'm years away. But when I think about 16, I'm immediately terrified.
Oh my gosh.
But I think, like, as you were talking about, doing the driver thing, I think, oh, when it gets close to that time, they're going to start watching how I drive.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's going to be the type of thing where I'm like, I can't do the drive with my knee for a second while I got my coffee. I'm going to have to become a better driver for a window of time.
That's right. That's
like
right.
10 and 2 the whole time. Otherwise, they're going to be like, well, you do the thing where you drive,
Yes.
Dad, you nap
Most
most
of
of
the
the
time
time
you're
you're
napping.
driving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a terrible
You have one of those
example.
self-driving situations.
I'm,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I am
Kids,
hoping
wake
it's
me
all
up when we get
self-driving.
there.
Yes.
So with the kids, I mean, that's interesting. Your kids, I didn't know they were as old as they are. That's fascinating. What is in the season of life that you're in? What is really fun and sweet right now, and then what is like hard?
Man, I mean, there's a lot of both. I mean, the fun and sweet part, I have this connection with my 16 and 13-year-old. I mean, we're having some pretty, like, heady conversations about life, and they're going through stuff that middle schoolers and high schoolers go through right now. I mean, going through middle school and high school with social media, I mean, give me a break, man.
Oh.
Like, are you kidding me?
That's
That
a
is-
nightmare.
I I have so much compassion and empathy for what, so they're not on a lot of social media, but so the fun and sweet part is having that kind of connection with them and being able to talk about, like, real life stuff. And then my youngest two girls, 10 and 8, they're just still, like, they love playing school and they love horses and baby dolls, and that's just amazing, So the hard part is, parenting teenagers it's wild, man. And there's I think my wife and I keep thinking there's some, secret out there that we haven't discovered, but I don't think there is. I keep asking, like, some older parents, I'm like, can you give me, like, how do I do this? And they're like,
Yeah.
Do you guys hang out in a cave somewhere and talk about this? I don't know it until a certain age. Can you invite me?
And it's just it's definitely hard at times, and it's staying vigilant. And I think the thing we've tried to do is just keep the door open and let our kids know that they can come to us with anything. Nothing's off limits. I've been, appropriately honest with my son about my life and what's, the journey that I've been on and my struggles, even when I was his age. I'm just trying to let him know, like, hey, look, Dad is not perfect, and I haven't done it right all the time. And you're just going to get grace upon grace from me, man. Hell does enough job heaping shame on our kids. My wife and I want to create an environment where they know they're going to get an embrace, and they're going to get grace and no judgment. We have to deal with sometimes, you make, decisions, there are consequences, and we'll walk through you with that, or with you through that. But, yeah, I think just try,
Or through you with that is just as
right.
appropriate.
Yeah. But yeah, man, we love it though, man. It's the hardest and the best thing that I do, being a dad and raising these kids, man. They're amazing. They're miracles. I love them so much. Love them.
So you mentioned how you were talking with your son about you when you were his age and all that. And one thing that I feel like I do a lot, I think it's good and bad, is I really compare like my daughter's childhood to my childhood at any given time, as much as I can do that with, my memory and all that kind of stuff. Like, I feel like I'm always trying to gauge it a little bit. Do you do that?
Yes, I do. I mean, I think about when I was, my kid's age. It's what we were talking about earlier. I didn't have near what available to me what they have available, now.
Yeah.
And our childhoods are very, very different. But I think my struggle a lot of times is comparing myself to other dads. I think that's the hardest thing for me. I look at other kids and I go, dang, man, that dad's doing a way better job than I am.
And what is your thing with that? Because I feel like I think I do that as well too, and it's always, there could be maybe a dad who is, I don't know, rolling up, buying his kid some big thing or whatever. That wouldn't faze me at all. It would only faze me if it's like the area of parenting where I feel like I'm failing or something like that.
Yeah,
if I saw a dad he throws his phone in the lake and then is just staring at his kid with like unbroken eye contact. That's the guy I'm like, oh, I'm doing it wrong. That guy's got it all right.
You're like, first of all, he's wasting his money. What an idiot. Also, he's terrifying his child. He's terrifying his child.
Very dramatic.
But I think my thing is like, Dave and I have talked about a lot, like what's the thing that will make you feel at the end of any given day like you had a good day as a dad? And I think I have to have like a moment with each of my daughters. And it could even be a moment where I feel like I'm really like engaged with them. Like I'm playing with them. I have a guilt about work. I've got a guilt about phone, computer, all that kind of stuff. Like I want them to feel like I'm really present with them, even if it's just in a moment. So that's my thing. But what's what is there an area where you feel like you're a little more vulnerable and looking at other dads and comparing yourself?
I feel like I relate to what you just said. I think it's the connection piece for me. I want to be connected to my kids on a heart level and be interested in what they're interested in. I want to look at them in the eye. I want them to feel my attention on any given day. And some days I do that well, and some days it's harder to do that. So I think where I play the comparison game is when I look at other dads and I think that dad's doing a great job of creating experiences for his son or creating experiences for his daughter, or look at the way, his son, carried himself in such and such setting. Like, he's really raising his, that's where I start to compare my dadding to other dads. But so much of that is self-inflicted, man. Like we're all our own worst critic. If I had my daughters or my son here, they'd be like, Dad, you're doing a great job. Like we know, we know that you love us and you make sacrifices and we feel you. Like you're good. I'm just so hard on myself.
The thing that I think the biggest encouragement I always get, because I think, every dad we have on talks about this, is just that, gosh, is it working? Am I being conscious? Am I being present? Am I whatever? The thing that I think all of my older dad friends say is like, just the fact that you are wondering that means you're doing fine. And I was like, okay, that's
right. It's proof of life.
It's just so, there you go. It's
but
proof
then,
of life.
Course,
so I think for me,
where my mind goes is, but odds are there's got to be one dad who's like, well, that guy actually did wonder and never did anything about it.
Sure.
Just statistically, there's got to be one, which kind of is the same.
He's drunk on that raft in the backyard.
Thought as I'm the only one. You know what I mean?
Right.
Sort of it's on that same sheet of paper.
I found a lot of freedom too in realizing that one day Isaac will be sitting at a place like On Site or with somebody going, I wish, or my dad dropped the ball in this way, or I wish my dad, like we don't get to escape that, like I'm not
Yeah,
the
that's right.
perfect
That's
dad.
right.
You know,
That's right.
I'm
Right.
trying to reflect
That's
the
right.
image of a perfect father, but I am not the perfect father. So I've had to let that go. I think for a while I thought I will be the one dad who doesn't put their kids in therapy. Like, you're wrong, bro. That's not going to happen.
No.
I think it's gone from me from exactly what you said. That feeling of like, I just want to be the dad that they're like, no, guys, and I hear you crying about your dad, but I'm crying for different reasons because my dad's the best. He's Captain America, but Shrek, but also a little bit of Alf. It's a weird kind. But I feel like for me that the thing that I've changed from is that which you said that I want to be the one dad. To I'm like, you know what I want to be now? I want to be the dad that when my kid comes to me, I mean, this is why we apologize so much now, is we want to set this path up. Is when he comes in and say, 25, I just had my first therapy session or whatever, and there's some junk that you did. And I go, yes. So let's tell, I know myself enough to know, I probably can say this before you did, but you go first. And that's what I want to be. It's not necessarily dad's like nothing ever happened, but the things that did, I know I'm well acquainted enough with my sin to go, yes, everything you've said is that's on brand for me, and I'm so sorry. And let's talk about it.
There you go.
I'm like that's what I want to be.
Yeah.
You know, like I can't do the first thing, but I think I can.
Amy
do
and
the
I
second
always
thing.
tell each other like, and we know we're gonna be. That day is gonna come, and it's probably gonna be. They're gonna say the thing that we swore we nailed.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's gonna be the one thing that we're gonna be like, oh, no, hang on, not that.
They're like, you tickled way too hard. Oh my gosh, I need to take this really quickly. And then we're gonna do the last two questions. This was the cutest thing in the world, and I can't believe I'm telling the story, but I just have to tell it. We're sitting in the car the other day, and I was, my kids are still young. They're 11, 8, and 6. And I just felt like I've just not been nailing it lately. It's just the holidays, and we've just been around each other a lot, and it can get tricky. And so I'm in the car, and we're driving to school. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I said, guys, just like turn the radio off. I was like, listen, I just feel like I haven't been doing a great job. Is there? I want y'all to think today about what I could be doing better. Just like what are things that Daddy can be doing better? And I'm telling you, before I can get done with the sentence, my daughter looks at me dead serious. You just tickle too hard. And I was like, okay, yeah, no, that's okay. She's like, yeah, I mean, like I tell you, like, Dad, you're tickling me too hard, and you still tickle hard. And I was like, okay, and I'm like, not. And then literally, my son goes, Dad, you got to stop farting, man. It's like. It's pretty intense. And I was like, okay, that's good. I mean, I am so ready. And I said, hey, guys, if that's what we got, that's what we got. And I'm listening. But, we can be harder than that if you got anything. And they're like, no, that's pretty much where we are right now. I was like,
let's go away from this conversation and think.
They're going to be at on-site in 20 years with those same issues.
The same issue.
Just the fiber. My dad's fiber intake was really
But it just goes to show sometimes we're harder on ourselves than...
Well, I mean, truthfully, like part of my takeaway was going, okay, Dave, let's maybe slack up a little on existential dilemmas with your 6-year-old who's like, you got to stop ripping him in the kitchen in the morning.
Sometimes it's not that heavy.
It's just not that heavy. Okay, so we always ask these last two questions. I'll ask the first one. What is the one thing you want your kids to know?
Man, I mean, I've listened to this podcast a lot, and I kind of knew these questions were coming, and I tried not to think about them beforehand. But now, like in the moment, there's this like. I just think I want them to know that I'm a safe place. I think that's what I want them to know, that they can come to me with anything. The door is open, and that my arms are open, and that Dad's a safe place. There's never any question about how I'm going to respond when they come to me with something kind of heavy or hard. I can celebrate with you, but I can also cry with you. I think that's what I would want them to know.
Yeah.
That's great.
Last question. What do you want your kids to say at your funeral?
I think I would want them to say that he was the real deal. I think I would want them to say like what you see is what you get. Like he was the same person at home as he was on stage. He was the same person at home as he was at hanging out with his friends. I think that would be a pretty a high compliment, just to know that like there was this that there was this sameness of
Yeah.
how it was at home and how it was professionally and all those kinds of things. Like he was the real deal. He's yeah.
Well, man, thank you so much.
Give it up for KS.
It was great.
Yeah, thank
chatting with
you.
you. I've been really
Thank you,
looking
thank
forward
you.
to this one.
Thanks, guys.